Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Anna from Astralladytarot, and today I am doing a tag by Marlene Teresa, and her tag is Tarot to the Extreme, or Tarot Extremes. And I saw her video. It's lovely. In case you haven't seen it yet, go there and check it out before you come back to this one. Because honestly, she comes up with a lot of cool discussion points and really goes in depth. I believe she's a beginner. That's what she says about herself, about her own tarot practice. But I feel that often a lot of things come up, a lot of thoughts and discussion points and maybe doubts come up in the beginning of our practice or in the first few years, which actually does make for very interesting tarot content. So if you have never heard of this channel, go ahead and check it out. And I think this is her first hashtag that she made herself. And yeah, I'm just saying it's great and I feel excited. So I definitely wanted to join. Now, I do have a few little disclaimers. I am still a bit sick upon filming this. I am recovering, finally. It's taken a long time, but I just want to say that in case I don't make sense or I start to drift a little bit, that's why. I have a cold and a sore throat and all that stuff. And the past videos, which will be the next 2 videos that will be uploaded, was during my sick period, on a better day, on a good day, on a day I felt good. So I think those videos are fine, but again, just in case I am extra strange, that's why. Maybe that's a good thing in Anna world. And the second disclaimer is that in this tag, there are 7 prompts, and of each question we show 2 decks, which in my case means that you will see the vast majority of my deck collection. So if you're up for that, stay tuned. ASMR. That has been done to death on YouTube channels, I know that, but I really need some tea, so here we go. The first prompt, the most minimalist deck versus the most maximalist deck. Okay, third disclaimer is I don't want to repeat my decks. I don't have a large deck collection, relatively, but I really try to show just one deck in each category. So my minimalist deck is my smallest deck, the Mildred Payne Secret Pocket Oracle, which I just tend to call Secret Pocket Oracle, by Patrick Valenza from Deviant Moon. And, it doesn't really read in a minimalist way, but it's just the fact that, do I have enough light here? Yeah, I'll just do that. It's just the fact that it's one word and one somewhat simple image per card. Crow. And then you have a crow. And then a number. And then fine, we have a little PDF guidebook, which has maybe 3 sentences in the meaning. Yet, obviously it's made to trigger some type of, response and everything, and meaning inside of yourself. So it's very intuitive, and I really like this little oracle. This was a gift from Manuela from Place of Stillness, who I'm sad to say has deleted her channel, I believe. But that's because I'm still in contact with her, and she visited me in Amsterdam once, and it was great. And yeah, she gifted me this. And she is now pursuing her own tarot and astrology business, but face to face, so no more online things. I think it's okay for me to say that. And obviously I wished her well and good luck and all of that. And a little thing, I fairly recently decided to keep the Witch card, even though it has different backs from the rest of the deck, to keep the Witch card in the deck. So when I shuffle, I don't look at the deck. And if I pick this special card, which is Mildred Payne, which is of course a character that Patrick Valenza came up with, then it's an extra special message, maybe saying that I need to do some witching of my own, or the client needs to do some type of witching or visualization or manifesting of their own. Because I do use this for client readings because it's great. I mean, it's so simple and it's genius. It's genius. So smallest deck, just one word, just one image, doesn't read minimalistic at all because a lot comes up. I actually made an entire spread with this deck. I called it the clock spread, and I shared this a few months ago on my Patreon in the headliner tier in case you're interested. But it was inspired by this deck because it's just so good. Obviously, you can use the spread with any deck, but just saying, the deck is really inspiring. So that's my minimalist deck. And then I have my maximalist deck, which is my tantric or secret Dakini oracle. This is maximalistic because it's my first collage deck. And collage, even though these days we are seeing crazy collage, you know, layer upon layers. And of course, before this, or maybe later, I'm not sure, but before all the modern collage decks, we had the Voyager Tarot, which is complete madness and people love it, you know. Definitely looked at that myself. But for me, as my first collage deck, this was a lot of information. So I just love this deck. It's crazy. It's bonkers. It blows my mind. I'm reading it in a very intuitive way. Also, the guidebook, which I don't really consult all that much, but sometimes I still do. It reads like Book of Thoth to me because there's a lot of fire in the deck and a lot of fire in the meaning and the approach also. You can read every card in a different chakra. There's a lot of information is what I'm saying. So it's very maximalistic in that sense as well. And when you're reading it, at least when I'm reading it, just so much comes up. I could talk about one card for hours, you know, which to be fair is true for me about any tarot card, but I guess in combination with this wonderful analog, I believe 70s collage art, it just brings something extra. And in this position, I can't really, well, maybe I can do like Marlene did and show the cards next to one another, which is fun to see if they could go together at all. And to be fair, I didn't think they would. And I'm not really the one who pairs decks, you know. I think they kind of do go together. Yeah. Oh, I love this card, the Serpent Power. So good. I also love this card. It's the equivalent of the Chariot. Wow, Bones and Tooth. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I do like to do patchwork spreads. So I use more than one deck and just read the cards intuitively. But to pair them together, not so much. And maybe actually this tag will inspire me and motivate me to do so in the future. So that's fun. That was the first one, minimalist versus maximalist. Minimalist is the secret pocket oracle, Mildred Payne's secret pocket oracle, and the maximalist is the tantric Dakini oracle. The second prompt is daytime versus nighttime. And these are decks that you've seen together plenty of times, just due to the way I have them stored in the first place. The daytime deck is my first system, my first deck. It's not the actual first deck that I owned because the first one was a yellow box, but this is the Rider-Waite Smith Centennial. And it's my daytime deck just because it reads so well and easily to me. It's familiar. I love reading with it. I get clear readings with it. It feels like talking to an old friend. Um, I mean, it's an everyday, all the time, whenever deck. Yet I do feel there is some type of light, some type of awakening. I don't know. It feels like it feels so familiar and grounding, but at the same time also very clear, communicative deck, that it just has that sun awaken aware uh quality and energy to it. So it feels like out of all the decks that I have, this is my daytime deck because it's just the deck that I reach for. Out of all the systems I love, I love Rider-Waite-Smith, I love Marseille, I love Thoth, I love the weird systems. The Rider-Waite-Smith is my first one again, and so that's why I think it's just the most obvious choice. Daytime to me corresponds to obvious. This is obvious. And then you will see, because of the boxes that I've made alone, but not just that, but we have daytime and then there's also nighttime. Now, obviously, there's more than one reason for this to be my nighttime deck, but this is my Triomphe della Luna Paradoxical, and it is my favorite deck. It's very dark. It's a Marseille system to me, and it's Marseille inspired deck, again by Patrick Valenza. By the way, this is by US Games and it's drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith. That's her autograph. And again, this is by Deviant Moon, Patrick Valenza. So again, yeah, my favorite deck. The reason this is my nighttime deck, I mean, obviously, favorite deck, the one I read with the most, the one I understand the best, the one I see myself in the most, the one I find myself in the most, and I understand, you get the gist. So it's my actual obvious choice. It is my first choice. It would be, if I have one deck, it will be my only choice, Yet nighttime, I feel I'm not very much of the sun. I'm much more lunar in just my whole being and the things I like and where I'm comfortable, and also what I pursue in a sense. I really like mysteries and, the things that are a little bit less of the ordinary in a sense. And so the whole strange of this deck is perfect, and it feels it belongs to the moon. I mean, obviously, it's Triomphe della Luna, la lune, the moon. It's Deviant Moon, right? So it's very dark also, the deck, right? There's moons in the back. It's very dark. I love this colorway. It's the best still, in my opinion. And I mean, just the fact that the deck glows under black light, UV light, it's just perfect, right? What other deck would I have chosen for my nighttime deck? How did I do it the other day? Well, I mean, daytime and nighttime. I feel that these two are such staples in my collection, or in my tarot practice, I'd rather say. Of course they go together. They understand each other as well. I have read with these together plenty of times. And also when I studied the Marseille system, I used this deck, and I had my Rider-Waite-Smith right next to it. Can't really say they go all that well together, but somehow, to me, yeah, they are just daytime and nighttime. And actually, before this tag, years ago, I just now remembered that I think I put this in a very old Instagram post where I had one side my Rider-Waite-Smith and on the other side I had this one, the Triunfo de la Luna, Paradoxical, and I said daytime deck, nighttime deck. So I feel like even without this question, this prompt, I somehow already knew what these decks were to me. That's all for these ones. Third question, the best shuffle versus the worst shuffle. Best shuffle, honestly, I could pick a lot of decks out of my collection, but I just chose the very extremely smooth, sturdy, quite thin, but very shuffleable cardstock of the Golden Rider. It's just a Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's different colors. And I mean, I really like it. It's kind of like my springtime, summertime Rider-Waite-Smith because of the colors. It has a very sweet, soft quality and feel due to the way it was painted. And I mean, what can I say? It's just a very, very smooth shuffle. I don't see how I can shuffle in frame. Let's try this. It's just very good. It fans out perfectly. But again, it's not the only deck in my collection that does this very well. But maybe this one is just a little bit more superior to the others, just because it fans out so well, and it's just kind of, it's very slippery, without, you know, all the cards running away from you, although a little bit. But another thing I really like about this type of cardstock is the fact that it's just normal tarot sized, yet you feel the core of the cards. The deck has a type of weight to it. It makes you want to do this all day long. and I really like that feel. Sometimes you get decks with really thick cards, but there's no core, and therefore you're holding a really thick deck, but it doesn't have any weight. I'd rather have thinner cards, but with that core that makes it something of substance, like you're actually holding something, you know? It's just a very tactile experience, what can I say? And yeah, this deck, very nice, not going anywhere. The worst shuffle is a deck I adore and work with quite a lot, actually, more and more. Also, I feel it has a lot of summer qualities. It's the Living Altar Oracle. The fact that the cards are thick, huge, stiff, and the rose petal finish, which is impossible to shuffle, fan out in the way that we want things to flow. It does mess with the flow of my process with this spiritual tool, because I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm not going to get rid of it. I like it a lot. It's very wild and messy, and my partner absolutely hates this artwork because he says it's like a child did it, but I'm just like, no, it's magical practitioners, and they're using the colors as a symbol, and look, this is a spell card. They photograph their spells, and there's just so much to work with. And I just love, personally, I love the medium of lino cut. So yeah, I am a fan of this, but the terrible shuffle makes this experience far less enjoyable. But that's all I have to say about this deck, because honestly, it's a keeper, and I love it. Now, I do have a feeling these two will do well next to one another because of the colors. The Living Altar Oracle, this one, is, oh, look at that. And yes, they're upside down. If you want to know why, here's the video. The Living Altar Oracle, what was I going to say? Yeah, it's based on the Wheel of the Year and all of that. So it's very, it shows those cycles and the stages in life and the elements. I really like it, and it really does add something of importance, of value to my practice. And if I ever feel like using Living Altar Oracle with a regular old Rider-Waite Smith, then I guess I know which one to pick. Right? Next is Confronting versus Comforting. Confronting, I realized something. All of my decks I consider confronting. Also, all of my decks I consider comforting. I did a tag a few years ago about hug decks, and even then I challenged what is a hug deck, but I could say which decks felt especially comforting to me, like a hug, safe, and yeah. But still, I want a deck to challenge me, right? A big reason why I'm into tarot for myself, for my own personal growth. Yeah, it's to work on the shadow, to work on the self, to make peace and annihilate at least parts of the ego, to grow and to, you know what I mean? So in order to do that, I just don't like affirmations in decks. Sometimes I feel I wish I had that, but I have never found up to this point a deck that I kept longer than 2 months that actually did that for me in a way that I felt helped me. It always felt like I'm taking a step back, you know? So every deck is confronting to me. Well, the deck that has been confronting me the most, I got all the negative cards, is actually the Toth deck. This is my greenie. I adore the Toth deck, but I already said in a previous video, recent video, that I need to take a little Toth break. Because you know I took the Toth deck with me, the small one, to Edinburgh. And before that, I did a whole month with just Toth deck as my main deck. And it was great, it was good, and I do readings with it, also professionally. But at a certain point, I got so many negative cards, and I know it's not the deck's fault. It's because I needed to hear that. But I got confused, and I got a little even disheartened. So I needed to work on that. But when all you get is 9 of Swords, 3 of Swords, 7 of Pentacles, 7 of Discs in the Toth deck. What else did I get? The 7 of Swords, 7 of Cups. All I'm saying is I don't know, maybe I got a little bit enough of that negativity because it felt so negative. And again, it's not the deck's fault, but you know, I mean, please share as you're watching this your own personal tip, what you would do in a situation like this. Because I feel like my mind is blanking a little bit right now. And as I'm looking through the deck, I'm falling in love with it all over again and I miss it. But I feel I need a bit of a Toth break because it stopped making sense to me. I have difficulty reading it now at the moment, and it's just because of where my head is at. It's just because of what I'm going through right now. Like getting a card like this, it wouldn't make things clearer, which is actually what I need right now. Feels more like a contemplative and also warning deck, which actually scares me more than it comforts me. So, confronting deck, tough deck at the moment. Yeah, that's just what it is. Oh yeah, Ten of Swords is another card I got a lot. Great, it's just what you want to see. Now for the comforting deck. I chose my rainy day deck, the Wildwood. This is both green. Huh. Yeah. I don't know, it's just a nature deck. It's based on the Wheel of the Year. It has a very soothing color palette. Everything is green and orange hued and a little bit of the right type of blue. I don't know. It's a mostly animal deck. It it just feels like it brings me into a sort of safe cocoon of my mind and body, and I really, really enjoy stepping into that dense, dark forest, those woods, and encounter those creatures, those people, you know, even the negative cards, if you can say that, because obviously every card is positive and negative. Oh, there's some type of, I don't know, hope, and I can't really explain it, which is probably the point of this tag, but what I said in the beginning of this very prompt, comforting versus confronting, all of my decks are both. It just depends how I feel. And I'm saying that at this moment, the Toss deck is the most confronting at the moment, and the Wildwood is the most comforting. I would not pair these two. Just saying. The artwork does not go together at all. Yet I do see some color and line work that might work, funnily enough. Anyway, the Thoth deck is, of course, a Crowley deck and illustrated by Lady Frida Harris, or Frida Lady Harris. And the Wildwood is actually a reimagination, I believe, of the, what's it called again? That other deck that might come out still. Anyway, I put it in the screen, and it's illustrated by Will Worthington, this deck, which is not my favorite art style at all. Sometimes it's too cartoony. Try to stay away from cartoony decks, although you'll see at least one other one. But yeah, I mean, I think you can see the difference. It's just, this is very abstract, and so I have to rely a lot on numerology, symbolism, tree of life, element, even astrological association, although I don't really do that, as you may know. And here, I can rely, I mean, it's not fair, it's a major arcana. I can rely on the surroundings and see, even though Three of Stones apparently doesn't look all that happy, I can still pathwork and imagine myself to be leaning against those cold stones, or maybe they're actually warmed by the heat of the sun. Maybe I feel the relief of that ox and that horse, or those spirals that are carved in this old stone and this old rock, and I feel the moss on my fingertips. It's just so very grounding, and I let my imagination run wild. Whereas in this deck, even when you get a major or a court card with an image you can totally get lost in, I don't know, sometimes it just feels a little bit too raw. And I think I'll get over that, because I know how beautiful and loving the Thoth deck can be. But just at this moment, it's just so confronting. I feel like that's not the energy that I can use, because it's just stressing me out more. Next, every day versus every so often. Every day, I have quite a lot of everyday decks. You've seen them, my Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial, my Triomphe de la Luna Paradoxical. Yet, I chose a deck, funnily enough, that I don't use that much yet. It was a gift, a lovely, lovely, generous gift. But I chose this deck because of the system, and it's the Tarot de Marseille. This is a classic Tarot de Marseille, although it looks aged and it looks like the cards have already been used, and it looks like someone wrote on the cards with pen or pencil and then tried to erase it, but it didn't really work, and it looks like some cards were bent or cracked or chipped or whatever it's called. All I mean to say is it's a beautiful deck. It's gorgeous, but the system especially I feel is every day. It feels like this is the type of deck that you use to read tarot with for your family on the kitchen table. You know, and it's very basic tarot, as in it's just tarot. You can use every other system on top of this. You can use astrology, you can use elements, you can use the tree of life, numerology, whatever. In its essence, it's just 22 keys plus playing cards, you know, and it's still very mystical and mysterious and magical and meaningful and powerful. As I showed the worst minor arcana card. No. What can I say? It's every day because it's the basic tarot, very sick tarot. You know? So what else would you need for everyday readings? This is just a jumping off point for it can mean anything. Of course not, it cannot mean everything, but it could potentially mean anything. Does that make sense? I don't know. Just saying, like, I've often said this. Here with the Four of Swords, it's scenic, it's illustrated. We get the idea of rest. With the Four of Swords in the Marseille, it's up to you what the swords mean. It's up to you what the four means. It's up to you what the little flower means. See what I mean? So, everyday deck. This particular is the Tarot de Marseille by Lo Scarabeo in the Anima Antiqua issue. And then the Every So Often deck is, ironically enough, a deck that I've used more often than this one, but it's the Halloween Tarot. Obviously, this is probably, no, actually, I'm quite certain this is the only deck that I have that I use specifically just once a year, is what I'm trying to say. I take it out of the shelf, I don't know, right before the month of Halloween. I read with it. It's just a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. Well, though, it's a little bit more deep than that. It's actually not a bad deck at all. It's really good. It's not a novelty deck. You get more out of it, is what I'm trying to say. But I take it out and I read with it for a full month. Then right after Halloween, usually I get sick of this whole vibe and put it back on the shelf. And that's it. And every year I find this friend again, and it's fun and it's cool, and I just discover more every time. What can I say? I just get a lot out of this. It's very friendly. It's very fun. Yes, I did blacken the borders, front and back. It's the only deck that I use just once a year, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm just having too much fun with it. It's kind of like every year I know I'm going to do at least one reading with it, you know, around the time of Halloween. October, the best month of the year. It's the month of my birthday as well. It's just pure joy. Now, I have no reason at all to compare these two, but let's try anyway. What do you think? We are comparing a beautiful but simple tarot deck, the Marseille, with a Halloween themed deck. I don't really know what to say about this. Well, the outfits kind of match the Fool. Yeah, again, wouldn't use these together, but still, it's fun to give it a go. Okay, next is kind of juicy. Overrated versus underrated. Okay, I don't want to pull a, what's his face? Papa Squirrel, there you go. But, overrated tarot deck. Yeah. So this is the first edition of the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Kranz. I still own it because of the occasional reading I do with it. It's never been my staple deck. It's never been a deck I'm obsessed with, but I have it, and I think it's really nice what it did for the tarot community. It rekindled a lot of people's love for tarot and searching for meaning and just silly little cards. And actually the artwork is cool. This could have been a minimalistic deck for me. It's actually, that's the thing. That's probably why I don't really reach for it. It's because it's too minimalistic for my taste. Yet I have never felt a real inclination to get rid of it. So there's something that makes me want to keep this deck. It's, you know, it's not really my style, but there's enough for me to keep it. And what can I say? It's never been a staple of mine, but it does feel like a staple for tarot world. Overrated simply because everybody and their mother was raging about this deck for years. And then I think indie creators saw that there was a market for independently published tarot decks. And I think from here on in, the flood of indie decks and Kickstarter, etc. I might be wrong, but that's what I think. That's my experience. Started, and yeah, we just got flooded with all the stuff. And this was, I think, the deck that opened the gate, which makes it cool. Yet I've never been crazy about it like some people have been. And now, where's the deck? Who still cares about this deck? I know a lot of people have it, but who is still making videos about this deck? I want to know. Because I actually am interested. I'm not just saying, see, it's overrated. I don't know. It's cool, but I'm more of a traditional tarot deck girl. Or give me something that's way out there. I feel this is neither. But it does have strengths. Just saying. So I do keep it for a reason. Because I'm quite strict with myself when it comes to which decks I own. Yeah. Underrated deck. Tarot Moon Garden. It's almost a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, yet it's Pippish. And I get it. The borders are huge. There's 2 borders and there's just this thin bit of artwork. But it's my inner child deck. This again is wonderful cardstock. This is actually buttery and shuffles perfectly, and it's also has that weight to the cards, so you feel like you're holding something, you know. I don't know why not, what's the sentence? How come not more people have this deck? Editing Anna will know how to say that sentence, but it'll be too late. Anyway, why is this so underrated? It's good. It speaks to the imagination. If you're a 90s kid, I mean, I was born in 87. You will see the color palette. This is your childhood, right? With the whole moon and the dream and and the bubbles and the fairies and the vines, unicorns and Pegasi. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a novelty deck. Again, you know, look deeper. There's so much there that adds to the symbolism, or to the meaning, I mean, and I just love it. And I feel that there are a lot of decks, which is fine. A lot of decks are coming out, but I feel that there are a lot of decks these days that have that young feel, but young in the sense it's actually made for adults who visit their childhood self, who visit their inner child. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking the Cosmic Slumber Tarot, that White Newman Tarot, stuff like those. Add to the list. I don't know every deck. And those are cool, but this is a deck that's actually from the 90s, because I'm thinking that era for me personally, right? What am I trying to say? It's this one feels like the real thing, whereas the other ones feel like an interpretation of this energy. And it's readily available. This is the old box, it's an old deck, but it's US Games reissued it, or what's it called? Reprinted it. So it's right there. Pick it up, give it a go. I like it. Now let's see what these do together. I think the occasional rainbow in the wild unknown works with these cards, yet again, I think we started off really strong with all the decks kind of fitting together, and now we are headed towards, it's been a while, headed towards, I don't know, just this artwork that doesn't really fit together. Yeah, so Overrated to me is the Wild Unknown, although I don't really have anything negative to say about the deck, to be honest. It's by Kim Kranz. The Underrated is the Terra of the Moon Garden, and I'm sorry I don't know who drew it, but it's readily available. US Games, right? We do have two more decks to show, and this is fun because the last one is light work versus shadow work. So Marlene said something that's really helpful because, again, every deck is light work, every deck is shadow work. Okay? You don't need a dark, gloomy, scary deck, confronting deck to do shadow work with. Rather, you can do really good shadow work with a super happy looking deck, right? Anyway, she said it's more conscious versus unconscious or subconscious. Not sure what she said, but that really helped me picking these decks, because the light work, I think light work, because I showed this, which is my Morgan's Tarot, which I realized is my summer deck, is my summer go-to. When it's warm, all I reach for is this deck. Weird, right? I didn't know that about myself, but finally it's clear. Summer deck, Morgan's Tarot. Can't get enough of this. But it's funny, I showed in that video, in one of the latest videos where I was using Morgan's Tarot and talking nonsense to the camera, people commented that I was doing good shadow work. And you know what? I probably was. I wasn't aware of it. But for me, it feels very light worky. Great word. Anyway, of course, this is a black and white deck, mostly white, so it's very light in visual sense. But I feel that with the craziness way out there and the crazy guidebook, it always brings me so far away from basically the here and now. I just travel dimensions with this deck, man. Even the silly cards. Most of the cards are silly, to be fair. I feel like I'm contemplating just things that surprise me that I didn't think I would be thinking about uh, that day. You know, it's just this deck is about everything. So I feel like when I shuffle this deck and I pick a card, anything can happen. Uh, and that makes it light work for me because it always ends on a positive note. I feel part of something bigger because there is you might not think that, you know, just flipping through the deck, but I feel working with this deck and also reading the little guidebooks, just a little white book, that this deck does have a purpose or a voice, or what is it I'm trying to say? A life lesson? It's on the tip of my tongue, but I'll just put it in the screen because I can hardly talk anymore. It's funny, I have used this for clients, although I deem it completely unsuitable for client readings. But I've used it on a client that I've known for years now. But yeah, I'm just saying, it just makes you think and contemplate, and then when you're finished trying to make sense of what the web of the universe actually is, then you kind of already forgot the initial issue at hand because you feel, well, if the universe is that big, then it doesn't really matter anymore. It does put things into perspective. Anyway, I feel that's light work. And now shadow work, because I mean, that still has a very special place in my practice. It's just any deck can be shadow work, any card can mean shadow work, working with the shadow, right? We get it. So I don't want to say this is my shadow work deck. Don't want to say that. I do want to say conscious, right? Getting very conscious and having a laugh at the same time. Morgan's Tarot is your gal. Unconscious, reading in a fully intuitive way, getting so much out of this crazy, silly artwork, yet still not being able to mentally flip through the deck so it's still not a main deck. Rose Magic Tarot. This is a dedicated deck these days. My patrons in the after party tier and up will know what I'm talking about. This is the ugliest deck in my collection, and I adore it. And I don't want a tarot practice without this deck, to be honest. To be fair, it's still also next to the dedicated aspect of this deck, because I feel a particular voice that I work with comes through very loudly, very clearly through these images. It is still just a tarot deck. So I don't always work with that entity when touching, shuffling, picking these cards. It's funny also, it's just light and dark, so very black backgrounds. This is really what I like to see in tarot decks, to be honest. Another just visual reason why the Triomphe della Luna Paradoxical is my favorite deck, just visually. Of course, that's not at all the most important thing, but I'm just saying it does matter, of course, because you see what your eye basically wants to see, right? It falls in love with the image. This deck, yeah, it's featured on my channel a lot. It's definitely unconscious energy for me because sometimes I know what comes through as a message, but I cannot explain why. And with all the other cards, with all of my other decks, I can explain why. So this is almost a medium tool. And I'm not saying I'm a psychic or any of the sort, anything like that, like Claire Who, right? I'm not clairvoyant, not clairaudient, nothing, just Claire Who. Who the hell is Claire? And I think that's basically all I can say about this deck at this point. It's by Londa Marks. Yeah, I have to show them next to one another, right? We might be surprised. So we have conscious and unconscious. Makes sense. The crow's magic is very mysterious and dark and shamanic in a sense. So it is the world of dreams. It's a cosmic deck, I feel. The Morgan's Tarot is also a cosmic deck, but for a different reason. Because you see, we do also, it feels like a little bit of a rebel. Because even though we are looking at a cityscape, for instance, here, I feel it's sort of detachment. Because I know the guidebook and then my entire thought process after that, after reading that, will just expand. Yeah. And make the whole thing a little bit less earthy in a sense. And therefore it feels like I'm different. So if you want to have a spiritual practice and be the best self, you have to awaken, right? In one sense or another. So that awakening, that change, that transformation, however it happens, you know, it doesn't matter. But it is about becoming more conscious, waking up. I guess that's why it's a little bit of a, yeah, the light deck out of the two. Okay, so as I've said before, you have seen the vast majority of my deck collection. A lot of these are just repeat Thoth decks and repeat Rider-Waite-Smith decks. If you've enjoyed this video, I will link one in the screen very soon that you will probably like as well. But of course, check the hashtag because I'm sure many more cool videos will pop up in the coming weeks, because this is just a fun tag and it does what I like to do, talk about tarot in a way. Even if we're showing decks, we are talking about what the deck does for our practice, you know, how we use it and what is the purpose and what is the voice that comes through. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So good job on that. I wish you all a good weekend and I'll see you next week. I'm just gonna walk the doggy. We gaan uit. We gaan naar buiten. Yeah, this dog speaks Dutch. Right, doggy? Mag ik een kusje? Nee, ik wil een kusje. Sit. Doesn't really feel like... Yeah, not interested in the camera whatsoever. Okay, I gotta go.